You are now listening to the fastest show on iSports Radio. My name is Darryl Kinsey Jr. Welcoming you to the lap of the extra mile for today, June 16th, 2025. And we are back after the greatest endurance race in the world, where Ferrari once again reigns supreme. George Russell takes the win in the Canadian Grand Prix. Kyle Kirkwood continues the streak of only two drivers winning the IndyCar Series, and NASCAR heads down to Mexico. And to help me talk about all of this is, welcome to all of you. I'm Ryan Stolo here tonight. We're going to get into things in just a moment. I thank all of you for being back here. It's been a while since I've been on. Work has taken me away from the show, but we're going to get things started right after this.
For the last 10 years, iSports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. Make sure to follow us at iSports Radio on X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube to keep up with the latest in sports and with all of our shows. Also, make sure to check out our daily updated website at iSportsRadio.com. At iSportsRadio.com, you can see our daily show schedule and check out all of our show pages with personal bios to learn a little bit more about each of our awesome hosts. In addition to our show pages, you can catch the iSports Radio blog, Hall of Fame, Fans of the Month page, and our merchandise shop, including t-shirts, tank tops, caps, long sleeves, hoodies, and more. For now over a decade here at iSports Radio, we've continued to be by the fans, for the fans, and we thank you all for your support and for making iSports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports.
All right, we're back. You're there from iSports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. My name is Darryl. Thank you so much for joining us joining me this evening as we ride solo the next hour to discuss the weekend that was in motorsports. As you see, we've gone under a little bit of a reorganization here with iSports Radio, but we are back and better than ever. And we're going to get started with a review, of course, the world's greatest endurance race, the Le Mans 24, which happened on Saturday and Sunday. If we did have the preview shows last week, I would have been gushing, waxing poetically about how much I love this great race. One of my first memories is watching the highlights on ESPN and later Speed Vision of the race. And here we are now getting the full 24-hour experience, including what has become the funniest part if you've watched some of the clips on TikTok, when I will officially and affectionately refer to as sleep deprivation commentary, which is all the commentators around that 1 to 2 a.m. France time trying to stay awake. There's really nothing of note going on, and they're just trying to keep themselves awake, and the conversations just go to weird, wonderful places. If you see this and you're on TikTok like I am, try to find the video, and I'm gonna have to go look for it during the break. The Spanish announce team, because it's always a Spanish announce team, start singing a song about coffee during the sleep deprivation hours of the Rolex 24. It's absolutely hilarious how they get into this song. I don't know if it's like a song that they made up on the spot or is something from Spain that I'm just hearing for the first time. I don't know, but either way, it was hilarious. And you gotta love sleep deprivation hours at the Le Mans 24. And the results in the hypercar class, as Taryn says, I remember Seth Eves saying on USRN when he did Le Mans, it was funny. Look, you got to find some way to keep yourself awake. When it's 2 a.m., you've been up since 6, you're amped for the race. All you want to do is go to sleep, but you have to keep commentating on this thing just in case something happens. So I absolutely get it. Let's go through this order, or go through the running order, see how everything went in the classes. Hypercar obviously was the focus, with 21 cars entered, and that class is only going to grow over the next couple of years. And it is the Ferrari of AF course. The 83 picks up the win after 387 laps in 24 hours at the Circuit de la Sarthe in France. Only one true safety car period during the night, as many of the incidents were taken care of with full course yellow or slow zones that Le Mans has entered in with the express purpose of keeping the race moving and keeping the race under green for a maximum amount of time, which I think other motorsports need to get involved with doing, especially over here in the United States. I would love to see the full course yellow / virtual safety car come to America, where you just pause the race, not completely reset it, because with how Le Mans has gone to an American style of safety car restart procedure, that does take time. As someone who went to the Rolex 24, some of those cautions went a few laps longer than they needed to, because they had to run through getting all the classes back in order before restarting the race. So they only used those safety car periods when they really needed them, which only needed one during the nighttime for obvious reasons. If you've ever watched the 24 Hours of Le Mans, it is dark, like dark 30 out there, because it is mainly public roads. So that allowed for the 387 laps, and this was a race that, once again, Ferrari, they show they have the strongest hypercar package right now. The aerodynamic design of the 499P is something that I think you're going to see a lot of the other hypercar teams start gravitating towards as we go deeper into this rule set. It's just efficient on these long straightaways that define the world's greatest endurance circuit. And they had them 1, 2, 3 with the Ferrari. They have course car ended up taking the win. That is the not the manufacturer, but the team-based privateer car. The manufacturer backed AF course Ferraris 51 and 50. On the road, finished 3rd and 4th, but we'll talk about the 50 in a minute. But at one point, these cars were 1, 2, 3. But I don't care what motorsport it is. I don't care what team it is. Even in the ones that are competent, Ferrari, still Ferraris. They had the 50 and 51 had a lot of technical infringements. The 51 had a couple of speeding penalties, which they were cracking down on at this Le Mans 24 this year. They were handing those things out like candy. The 50 was in a good spot, but then spun coming to pit road in the final hours. Pretty much ended that car's chance for victory. But what happened with the 51 and the 50, they started having overheating issues. So the number 6 Penske Porsche was able to spoil the party and stop the Ferrari 499P from being only the 3rd car in the history of Le Mans to go 1, 2, 3, which would have joined the Porsche 917 and the famous Ford GT40 as the only 2 cars to complete that accomplishment. There have been Ferraris that have done 1, 2, 3, but they have not been the same car as. I see joining me. Let me see if I can get him in here. Oh, I saw Larry B in here. Looks like he has gone away, but we will continue as we go down the order. The 50 would be disqualified in post-race scrutineering. That was actually announced in the last few hours due to a technical infringement, ironically, on the rear wing, which we have seen kind of rear its ugly head in IndyCar. But there were 4 bolts missing from the rear wing assembly that allowed it to deflect a lot more than it was supposed to. So that car will now go to the back of the grid. Cadillac Hertz Team Jota now finishes in fourth, with Toyota Gazoo Racing finishing fifth, which the Toyota, which did run this circuit at some point, I know Toyota's doing a refresh of their GT3 car. I think it's time to refresh the hypercar, because unfortunately they were nowhere with the TS10 on Saturday and Sunday. The 8 ran into all sorts of issues, had a hub or wheel hub issue that relegated it down the order. The 7 ended up finishing, of course, top 5, but they really didn't have the speed to challenge. And at the start, it really looked like there was a lot of conversation whether or not Toyota was going, or there was a lot of conversation that Toyota was going to be able to challenge Ferrari. Unfortunately, that just did not materialize. As we go down the order, the other Cadillac for Hertz Team Jota, which Team Jota, they locked out the front row first time since the 60s that an American car did that, and it lasted all the 3 turns before the Porsche took off. The Cadillac, it was great over a lap, did not have the straight line speed to be able to compete during the 2025 edition of the 24 Hours of Le Mans, and it showed. As they, other than that little stint at the front, they were nowhere. And I was about to say American Le Mans Series, but that is such an old dated reference. The IMSA WeatherTech cars of the 31 for Whelen, not for Whelen, for Action Express, and the 10 going under the 101 for Wayne Taylor Racing. Both those cars failed to finish due to various issues during the race. So unfortunate for the Cadillac brand as a whole. Keep going down the order. Alpine, this was a car that was also expected to put up a fight. Really was just an also ran. The 35 finished in 10th for the Alpine Endurance Team, the 36 finishing in 11th. They do win the top honors for the French Marquis in the hypercar category, as the Peugeots, that troubled program continues its unfortunate, I'm just going to call it irrelevance, finishing 12th and 17th. And it's probably looking like Peugeot is going to be the first manufacturer to pull the plug, because that car just cannot find speed at all. And as much as we love having all these manufacturer cars around it, if they're not winning, they're not staying. And what I will say about the other cars is at least they've been competitive. The Peugeot has not. Outside of one race at Qatar where it looked like they were going to have a chance for victory and ran out of fuel. So that is unfortunate for Peugeot, but at some point it's great having them back. They were once the great foil to Audi at one point, but this car is just not cutting the mustard. 13th and 15th were the Aston Martins, 007 and 009 for the Harder Racing. They had a relatively trouble-free event, able to make up some spots where they could, which when you are a first-time manufacturer, that's all you ask for. When you come to Le Mans, you want to finish the race and build that notebook, which is what this year is for when it comes to that Aston Martin program. The 99 Proton competition car finished in 14th. We already mentioned the 8 Toyota and the 93 Peugeot. BMW, their bad luck in endurance races continues with Team WRT. Both those cars were strong, and then the mechanical gremlins started to bite. Both cars spent lengthy time in the garage, which in the Rolex 24, if you have to spend time in the garage, or not the Rolex 24, in the Le Mans 24, if you've got to go into that garage in the modern day with how bulletproof these cars are, you're done. And that's what happened to BMW, 18th and 19th. And we mentioned the Cadillacs 2021 for the 3, 11, and the 10. Moving on to LMP2, there were two classes here, the Pro Class and Pro-Am. Inter-Europol competition, they thought they weren't going to win the race, got a speeding penalty in the final pit stop of the race. Usually, that is it. VDS Panis Racing looked like they were going to take the win. They were going to get the glory. The late race comeback. Something goes wrong with that car, and they just lose all speed. Inter-Europol competition's able to catch up with the 43, go past VDS Panis Racing in the Eureka chassis class, which is LMP2. An Inter-Europol competition snatches victory from the jaws of defeat, taking the win in the LMP2 category. VDS Panis Racing, a disappointing second for them. And AO by TF Sport, that is AO Racing's entry into the 24 Hours of Le Mans. Spike has a gold tooth of his own now. He takes the win in the Pro-Am category. So now all three cars for AO Racing are blinging when they come back to America, and they're going to be back real soon. As we go through the order for LMP2, Iron Lynx Proton 4th, TDS Racing round out the top 5, which was an entertaining class, although definitely was not as close as it's been in recent years. Only 2 cars finishing on the lead lap in that category. And LMGT3, usually the most entertaining class, 4 cars finish on the lead lap. And it's TF Sport taking the 3rd spot, carrying the mail for Corvette, which had a struggle this year. That is another one of those marquees that needs to go back to the drawing board at this track. They just don't have the straight line speed. Vista A, of course, that Ferrari finishes 2nd, and Manti First Form takes the win in back-to-back races. LMGT3 going the way of Manti once again as Porsche reigns supreme in GT, where they have made themselves a home in recent years when it comes to endurance racing. This race also saw the return of Mercedes as a marquee to LMGT3. The Iron Lynx cars finished 12th and 15th on the day, but thankfully we had no flying Mercedes during this race. In a Proton competition, unfortunately, they get the wooden spoon of this race. Actually, they had 3 cars, 61, 63, and 60. With that 60 finishing 23rd. The wooden spoon goes to the Proton competition Mustang, which crashed out early in the race, finishing 24th in the Rolex. Sorry, not the Rolex. I keep trying to call it Rolex in the Le Mans 24. And now it'll be a break time, a much needed break time for the WEC competitors, as they will be going on a break until August to continue their season. Actually, no, they'll be back in July, as they will be racing in Brazil for the 6 Hours of Sao Paulo on July 13th. You can be able to watch that race on Max. However, for the IMSA cars, or for the IMSA teams, well, they got a quick turnaround because they come back to the Saleen 6 Hours of the Glen on Sunday. You can watch that race on Peacock as they continue their run to Atlanta in the Petit Le Mans in the end of their season in a series that has been dominated by Porsche this year. We'll see if the Penske Porsches can continue their dominance of the field, although they were conquered by Acura in Michigan earlier this year. We'll see if they can continue heading on into the next race in Watkins Glen. They'll be running the boot, where a lot of people want NASCAR to go. You do not want that. It is just something that you see, and it's shiny and new. But we're going to take a break. When we come back, NASCAR went south of the border on Sunday, and I don't mean to South Carolina. I'll talk about that on the other side of this break here on the Extra Mile on iSports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hey there, IE Sports Radio fans. Be sure to check out our sponsor, Seal the Deal Wax Seals by Cecilia B. You just finished your very own wedding or baby shower invitations and you're looking for that extra special touch? Maybe you just wrote a letter to a relative or a friend and you want to add to their smile when they receive it. Then seal the deal with Cecilia's handmade sealing wax stamps for your invitations, letters, and gifts. You bring the deal, we'll bring the seal. You can find them on Instagram at sealthedeal_wax stamps and on Facebook, Seal the Deal Wax Seals.
Darryl riding solo this evening. We're going to talk NASCAR going south of the border in Mexico this weekend, and which was a highly anticipated race for all of us here in the motorsports world. See how NASCAR would handle racing about a mile high up in Mexico, which was one of the big talking points coming into the weekend, which was how the drivers would deal with the lack of oxygen being in a higher elevation. As they said, it makes everything the car does worse, except for going in a straight line, which also has its own issues because that makes it hard to brake. So the cars were a lot harder to drive, and it was actually a really good road course race for a car that has been much maligned when it comes to road course racing in the last couple of years, which we've had a couple of good road course races to start the year, really, as far as that racing is concerned. Earlier, we went to COTA at a new short course, and these cars put on quite a show, and they put on another one in Mexico. The wet weather tires came out for a brief portion of the race, and it created a situation where teams had to strategize and have to play the radar to see when the rain was going to come or whether or not it was going to come back. That rain did catch out Kyle Busch, who ended up locking the brakes and took out a couple other competitors during the race. But in the Viva Mexico 250 at the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez, the inevitable finally happened as Shane Van Gisbergen finally picks up a win this season at a road course, a place where a lot of folks thought that he would dominate. Unfortunately, we've only had two. They thought he would sweep the road courses in the playoffs. Got beat in COTA. Would not be denied here, though, in Mexico, in a race where he made it look easy, to be honest. He was challenged, though, at times by Ty Gibbs. However, Ty, after a late caution, just could not find the speed again to get back up through the field. Had to settle for an 11th place finish, but a lot of names in a jumbled up order in Mexico behind Shane Van Gisbergen. And Christopher Bell ended up second after starting 31st. So a great move up the field for him. Alex Bowman went from 29th to 4th as well. Chase Elliott was 3rd. Michael McDowell was 5th. John Hunter Nemechek, who has not had a great season, was 6th. And you can really say that for the next three guys. Chase Briscoe, 7th. Cole Custer in the 8th spot. William Byron, who has been quiet by his standards, was 9th. Chris Buescher rounded out the top 10. But we also had a renewal of the rivalry between one Ricky Stenhouse Jr. and one Carson Hocevar, as Hocevar was a lap down during the final stage of the race. overcooked the brakes, just happened to get into Ricky Stenhouse Jr. And unfortunately, that got into a spin, and that caused a kerfuffle at the end of the race where Ricky Stenhouse Jr. got out and basically got out of his car and told Carson Hocevar, when we get to the States, I'm going to kick your you-know-what. And Hocevar said, pull up. He's starting to become my favorite second favorite driver, by the way, Carson Hocevar. He is not playing games with the field. He definitely did not come to make friends, but I don't think this was a situation where he intentionally got into it with Ricky Stenhouse Jr. It's a tough day that got worse because he just overcooked the brakes. But after what happened in Nashville, Ricky is feeling it, and he's not feeling it in a good way. And he said, wait till Pocono, which comes up this Sunday. And I think we could see a third act. Is that going to lead to the big fight that we're looking for in this feud? We haven't seen one of these in quite some time. I think there's a lot of us that are hoping we get to see a nice little knockdown, drag-out fight. Gonna cross our fingers and hope, but I definitely think I am team. Definitely, as I'm thinking about it, I think I am definitely team Hocevar at this point. It is the kid's not going to take anything lying down. He wants to win, and he's had a couple of opportunities, and those wins have eluded him. Meanwhile, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., he's on the downslope of his career. He's got a bit of a reputation for causing incidents. And he's trying to play the veteran role of, I'm mad as heck, I'm not going to take it anymore, but I don't think anybody's going to really take him serious. He has not had the resume to play that role, to be honest. So I think I'm team Hocevar on this, but hey, let me know on Twitter on Blue Sky if you think I am wrong. As we continue down the order, Ty Gibbs, Bubba Wallace, 11th and 12th. A great run for Bubba Wallace from the 25th spot to get just outside the top 10. AJ Allmendinger, what could have been, was 13th. Ryan Blaney, 14th. Ryan Preece started second, had to settle for 15th on the day. The main conversation, though, this weekend has been, or not this weekend, the main conversation today has been about Shane Van Gisbergen winning this race and whether or not the 33rd place driver in points should get a chance in the playoffs. It's winning, you're in. That is the rules we're playing by. And I don't know why we're spending this much time complaining about a guy that, let's be honest, is probably going to be a first-round exit. They have not been great on ovals. This championship is going to be decided on ovals. They're just getting there for the extra sponsor money they can get for that first round. And they're just going to wave, take the picture, and be gone. You know, Shane is getting better on the ovals, but he's still got a lot to learn, which a lot of the guys that come over from international championships do when it comes to oval racing, because a lot of folks think that it's just going around in circles. And no, there is a lot of nuance that goes into oval racing. There is a cadence. So when you get off the throttle, get back on the throttle, saving the tires. You got to be a little bit more aggressive on the starts, which is not much of a thing on road courses, but especially in NASCAR, you got to get all you can get when it comes to these oval restarts. And folks are not going to give an inch on these restarts anymore. It used to be give and take. Well, it's all take. And it's something that they're going to have to learn. Shane was back in his wheelhouse in Mexico City, and he picked up the win. It is what it is. But NASCAR did a great job of embracing the culture. They had Mexican dancers during the opening driver's introduction. They had the United States anthem followed by the Mexican anthem, giving it its reverence, being in the home country for the race, or the host country for the race. And Daniel Suarez was basically treated like a rock star all weekend. This was a race that has been talked about a lot by his camp. And even though he didn't get the Cup Series win, in fact, it was not a great day for him in Cup at all. He finished 19th despite starting 10th. On Saturday, he wins the Xfinity race to the cheer of his home crowd. And it was a great moment to see Daniel Suarez celebrating with the Mexico City crowd, with everything he had to give up to come to America and race in the United States. He talked about it on the pre-race show where his dad had to sell his company to help fund his racing career. And he really came over here with nothing but a dream to drive cars really fast, and he's achieved it. And now Suarez, on one Saturday in the Xfinity Series, picks up the win and got to celebrate with his home crowd. So what is coming up for NASCAR this weekend? Well, they are going to be going to Pocono Raceway. That'll be on Friday, June 20th for the Truck Series, and the Cup Series will be on Sunday. Of course, we will be watching the weather, as we always are, in the Pocono Mountains in June. Hopefully the thunder and lightning and storms will stay away. It should be a fun race around the Tricky Triangle, especially now that we're getting down to it to decide who is going to be in the playoffs. A lot of drivers really need some wins to lock themselves in or feel comfortable being in the playoffs. And we will have the Xfinity Series there on Saturday as well in the Explore the Pocono Mountains 250. So a lot of drivers are going to have to get desperate. It's going to make for a fun weekend of racing. But we're going to take another break. When we come back, Formula One was in action in the Canadian Grand Prix. And while one driver shined, another driver showed why he's probably not going to be on the top step of the championship at year's end anytime soon. We'll talk about that on the other side of this break here on the Extra Mile on iSports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hi, eSports Radio fans. This show is brought to you by Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, single-A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all-brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, is low in sugar, and high in protein. Go to their website at planetjerky.net and follow them on Instagram at Planet Jerky. Planet Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet.
Sport. Thank you all for joining us this evening as we continue on with our review of the racing weekend. We'll continue now with the Canadian Grand Prix, the Formula One World Championship, continuing its way around the world. And it was George Russell who ends up picking up the win over Max Verstappen and Kimi Antonelli on the podium. But all the conversation in this race was about the last racing lap tussle between Piastri and Norris. 3 laps to go. Norris was getting desperate to get around his teammate. Tries an ill-advised move going into turn number 1. Gets into the inside. Well, actually ran to the back of his teammate. Took his own front wing off. hit the inside retaining wall, and ended his race and our green flag running as the race would end under the safety car. And Norris would finish out of the race and get no points. Oscar Piastri would expand his lead in the championship to 22. As we continue on, and all year you have heard us talk about Lando Norris and whether or not he is championship material. And I think after that move, the pendulum is turning towards no. Oscar Piastri is the young driver in this situation, running his second season in Formula One, and he looks like the veteran. Meanwhile, Norris is the driver that's looking like he has something to prove. And I'm not surprised. A lot of expectation has been put on Lando Norris's shoulders to bring McLaren back to the promised land. And because the car wasn't in the great spot, there weren't a lot of expectations. That changed last year when McLaren hit on a setup and became the best car on the grid and had an opportunity to win the championship. But several times last year, Lando, and not helped by Team McLaren, made baffling, and I mean baffling, mistakes, from allowing Piastri to win the race at Hungary, which ended up being the decider, to at Mexico on the rain tires, or in Brazil in changeable conditions, where Norris ended up spinning out and basically throwing away the championship at that moment. Lando Norris, despite having the better car, was not the better driver last year against Max Verstappen. This year, with the best car, and with Max languishing to drag that car up to the results that it's been in, this should have been a walk away for Lando Norris. Instead, Oscar Piastri on the other side of the garage has seized the opportunity, and as of right now, the point standings. And as we go over after that ill-advised incident, Piastri has grown his points lead. And it gets to a point of, if Piastri wins this championship, it's really going to be a question of not will Lando win a World Drivers title, if he will win a World Drivers title, which will also mean a reshuffling of the board at McLaren at who's the number one driver and who's the number two. Even if they don't operate like it officially, you've only got one pit stall. Somebody's got to get the advantageous strategy, and somebody's got to be the second fiddle in every weekend. And Lando might find himself as the second fiddle more often than not, if he cannot find the speed to overtake his teammate, which I just don't think he has right now. And it's because he doesn't have the mental fortitude. He hasn't proven it. He's going to have to prove that to us, that he does have the mentality to be a world champion. And speaking of that mentality, George Russell took the win, but it was not without controversy, as, yes, Patrick, there was another George Russell and Max Verstappen thing. This time during the safety car period that ended the race, George Russell was either trying to heat up the tires or trying to brake check Max Verstappen, depending on how you look at it. As Max was, well, being Max, he went to the outside, tried to fake a pass on Russell. Russell saw it, hit the brakes. That led to what Red Bull does best when they're not winning, which is whine and cry and then lodge protest, which is very rich from Christian Horner, the guy that told everybody when they were kicking everybody's butts over the new year, over the past few years of Red Bull dominance to make a better car. Now teams have made better cars. They haven't. And now Christian Horner is whining, crying to the officials that they're being mean to him, or that someone's driving erratically, or we're taking pictures to show that somebody had the advantage, when no, Christian, that's not the problem. Your driver doesn't stay on the track, and that's what the problem was. I hate that every time Red Bull is they end up in a disadvantaged position in the World Championship. They start crying to the officials. I'm done with it when it comes to that team. You know, you can make the excuses, you can say whatever you want. You guys got gifted a title in 2021. You don't get to play the officials card anymore. And you don't get to whine that everybody's being mean to us or that there's a British bias when you are literally gifted a World Drivers' Championship in 2021. I don't want to hear it. The protest that Red Bull lodged, of course, was denied, which led to some Red Bull fans crying British bias, and my eyes rolled all the way back and down the street after hearing that. Just absolutely ridiculous. But Red Bull's going to have to they're not going to get this championship in the stewards room this time. They're going to have to get it done on the track. And right now, if they're going to, I don't think it's going to be with the brain trust they have right now. And I don't think that is unfortunate for anyone, because the way this group has acted, they're going out sad. And I don't really have any sorrows for them, unfortunately. But also RIP to the Canadian Grand Prix Groundhog, as unfortunately it met a gruesome end with the front end of Lewis Hamilton's car, who ended up finishing in the 6th spot in Canada. And unfortunately, Gary the Groundhog is no more. So before we get out of here, a quick review of the IndyCar championship currently going on in the NTT Data IndyCar Series. They were in Gateway on Sunday night. Another great race in St. Louis, with Kyle Kirkwood picking up the win, his second straight win. And only 2 drivers have been able to win in IndyCar this season, Palou and Kirkwood. While Palou had by his standards, not a great night, qualified down the order, did rebound to an 8th place finish. However, it was not a characteristic day for him at all. Actually, qualified 9th, went as far back as 17th, but did come back to finish in the 8th spot. And this looked like a race where we were going to see Penske respond, but all 3 of those cars ran into issues. Will Power got into the wall. Scott McLaughlin had a mechanical issue, and Joseph Newgarden had a scary wreck. Had a car, Louis Foster, spin in front of him. Newgarden had nowhere to go, went up the back of him, skidded on the windscreen, which the aero screen saves another life. But this season for Penske is just one to write off. They had the firings after the penalties at Indy earlier this year, and that team's got a lot that they have to get straight coming into next season. But looking at the championship over there, Kyle Kirkwood, who has stepped up for Andretti. They're trying to make this championship interesting. Now only 75 points. I say only, behind Alex Palou, who had a torrid pace at the start of the season, has cooled off a little bit, had the DNF at Detroit, rebounded to a top 10 in Gateway, but it wasn't very convincing. Coming up, there's plenty of races left to make up that gap. We're going to Road America on Sunday, July 6th. They'll be at the Honda Indy 200 at Mid-Ohio. After that, and there's still plenty of races left after that. We've got the 2 races in Iowa, the Farm to Finish 275 and the Sink 275. Then we go to Ontario, Canada, with the Ontario Honda Dealers Indy Toronto, the Grand Prix of Monterey, the BitNow.com Grand Prix of Portland, the Milwaukee 250, and the Music City Grand Prix at Nashville Super Speedway. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8, 9 races left to go. A 75-point advantage that is surmountable if Alex Palou can't get back on the horse, which I think he'll be back, but it's interesting to see. He's slowing down a little bit. How slow is this slowdown going to be? We'll find out as the season continues. But hey, I want to thank you all for joining us this weekend. We will be back at full strength next week. I want to thank everybody for listening this evening, whether you're listening live or on wherever you get your podcast, to this edition of The Extra Mile, and we will see you in the next green flag. Good night, everybody.